No, my thumbnail is not clickbait. Look, the devs said the game was inspired by Chrono Trigger. See? Okay, real talk. Bro, the amount of times that I had been baited into a game simply because they bring up Chrono Trigger should already be illegal. First it was I Am Setsuna, then it was Octopath Traveler. None of these games really got even close to the hype that Chrono Trigger was. Sea of Stars? I mean, maybe. I don't think that I will. Yo, let's go! What? Wow! Okay, enough playing around. Alright, so as some of you may know, I really like MMOs. Today I want to talk about a new upcoming MMO called Chrono Odyssey. I want to mention some of the things that I think are exciting about this, but also some personal concerns that I have. I think I really want to give Chrono Odyssey a try, even when we still don't know if it's going to be pay to win or not, which, by the way, I will address in a moment. Thing is, there's something so magical about starting a fresh MMO, a fresh start where nobody knows what's going on, there's very few notions of how to progress, metas don't matter yet, and you can just fuck around to eventually find out. It is super fun to walk around in a world where you can see different players doing their own stuff, chat with different people, and then group up to do content. MMO releases are probably one of my favorite experiences, and in many cases they carry the genre for the first few months in any game. The class systems also look quite promising, boasting a small roster, but every class has different weapons that they can use that can really change their playstyle and even their role in a group. I really like the idea of keeping both PvE and PvP content at a small scale. I know some people like the spectacle of 20 people fighting a raid boss, or massive groups of players fighting each other like in Guild Wars 2 or Throne and Liberty. But over time I've learned to appreciate the more intricate interactions and the deeper complexity that can be achieved in smaller groups. Since having less people in the encounters means that the game really has to pressure everyone to use their tools in more meaningful ways. The aesthetic of the game is also quite interesting, very reminiscent of the eldritch themes that you can find sometimes in Lovecraftian stories. And what's this? A focus on not trying to clutter the UI even if it comes at the cost of not having things like a minimap, simply because a little inconvenience can add to the experience? What a crazy idea! And damn, from what I saw in the interview Kanon made, the devs are actively working in focus groups with people from the West in order to adapt as much as possible to the Western audience. Nice! All in all, there are things about Chrono Odyssey that look very promising. Now, we cannot ignore the elephant in the room. This is a Korean MMO. And if playing 2 years of Lost Ark has taught me anything, the way people in Korea see games is very different from what we expect in the West. During my Lost Ark crash out, I had the opportunity to talk to different people, and I even read some comments from different communities in Korea. Hell, before I gained any traction making Monster Hunter content, I was featured in one of Miso's podcast episodes for Lost Ark. There's a really different culture when it comes to games over there, to the point that the monetization and the player expectations are built around the idea that not only the company will squeeze every single penny from their players, but players in many cases will be able to profit from selling in-game content by providing different services like carries or items. Keep in mind that these are only rumors, but for a game to be interesting in Korea, they do wonder like, am I, the player, going to have any means to make money off of this game? Like, that's a real concern that people have over there, and that I don't think we really care about as much in the West. Looking at Chrono Odyssey and making a contrast with how my experience was in Lost Ark and in Throne and Liberty, I can't really say that I'm not weary as to how the game is going to turn out. Especially because we have to answer the question, first and foremost, is this game going to be pay to win? Wait, is Kanon interviewing the Chrono Odyssey lead? Is he gonna ask them about pay to win? Let's go! Alright, wait, hold up. Let's be reasonable here. I really want to give props to Kanon because in the interview, he doesn't ask the guy once. Not only, he asks the guy twice. Kanon asks him if there's any pay to win 3 times. And the 3 times, the lead says, we want no pay to win in our game. Amazing work, Kanon. Keep it up. That said, We cannot, despite how good this looks, be gullible about this. The interview Kanon did can give you a good, general idea about the design behind the game, but you will see that there's mention of a lot of elements that will make anybody get excited. Chrono's lead references things like open world action RPG, where they want to do all they can to reduce the fatigue that MMOs can oftentimes create in players. Looks too good to be true, right? He also name drops different games that inspired the design behind Chrono Odyssey, like Chrono Trigger, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Elden Ring. But my dude, simply having a time control component to your game doesn't mean that you're directly referencing the unique elements of Chrono Trigger. And just having an artifact that helps you have a player interface doesn't mean that it is drawing from the good aspects of what made Breath of the Wild cool. That's like saying, hey, look at my dog, it is really cool because it has 4 legs like tigers do. No, I cannot really shake the feeling that these types of discourses are rather common today. Like, you want to name drop some successful titles or even games that have stood the test of time in order to draw attention and hype things up. Luckily for us, while Kanon's interview is great and gives us a really good notion of what to look forward to, TheLazyPeon and Kira are trying to keep a more level-headed stance. And Kira even goes out of his way to make sure we don't fall through the mental gymnastics that can sometimes ensue.
Well, during the interview, there was definitely a lot of buzzwords thrown around, as well as contradictive statements that confused me quite a lot. Early on, he spoke about how typical MMOs have a main quest line, which made it sound like Chrono Odyssey won't have one, but later on says there is a main quest line, but players can do other stuff aside from that. There was a lot of buzzwords like vast, mysterious world, players shape the world, carve out your own path, exploration, uncover an epic narrative, but it seems like a lot of vague marketing talk.
We can see TheLazyPeon being a bit skeptical about the way that the Chrono team communicates, since they are not entirely coherent with their discourse, which can point out that they are really trying to probe the landscape of how some things will be received by potential players. Now, the guy who really doesn't pull any punches is my guy Kira here, really making one thing clear: what might be pay to win to you might not be pay to win to others.
When there's something more important to talk about, because personally, I'm not a fan of when it feels like I'm being lied to. It's an MMO from Korea. It's going to be pay to win. It's just what level of pay to win. And it's not necessarily that they're lying. It's that they see pay to win as this. You see pay to win as this. A few hours later, MMORPG.com released an article with an interview from Chrono Studios. In this article, they ask again questions about the pay to win. The answer they give here is different from the Kanon interview. They state, quote, "Instead, our game's in-game monetization will focus on cosmetic items and quality of life enhancements, ensuring that gameplay balance remains intact for all players."
What he is doing here is extremely important moving forward. Maybe this is a case of a huge cultural dissonance, but it seems that people in Korea really have a completely skewed perspective on what is considered to be pay to win. And this is because, as I said earlier, the money involved in these games, both to profit and to spend, is almost always the main focus of these endeavors. It really seems that nothing made in Korea is made for the love of the game, and everything is about money. This is important to set the right expectations. Because while the interview between Kanon and the lead of Chrono Odyssey might show really exciting things to look forward to, we cannot forget that time and time again, Korean studios are not entirely honest about the way that they advertise themselves. And before the hype, before the hope, we must keep a level of skepticism until the actual monetization models and the progression systems are fully revealed. Because in this day and age, they can make or break these games. If you want to know more about this game, I really recommend you to watch all these 3 videos because they are giving the best commentary I've seen so far. Kanon's interview raises some important questions, like what is going to be the end game of Chrono Odyssey? Will there be a lot of daily grind? What will be the progression systems? And of course, what about pay to win? The TheLazyPeon gameplay review shows a little bit of what I said earlier. There's going to be PvE elements combined with PvP. The combat looks quite solid and the class systems are interesting. You can check more about this in his video. Lastly, Kira's rant about pay to win in MMOs is more important than ever. I think that people get lost in the semantics surrounding this, but the bottom line is that when we see scummy practices, we have to call them for what they are. And the studio behind Chrono Odyssey is not always entirely transparent with how they rely information. So yeah, Just wanted to put this out there because it is very easy to let the hype blind you a little bit. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you do any of the things shown in these stickers. Give it a like and I'll be especially thankful if you share this video. I'm currently praying to all existing pantheons that I can get a beta key to try the game myself and hopefully cover the game in the future. What are your feelings about Chrono Odyssey so far? I know I mostly cover Monster Hunter lately, but do we have any MMO enjoyers this time around? Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments below. As always, my name is Sun, and until next time.